Good morning, everyone. Hello, Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Namaskar, Vanakkam, Assalamu Alaikum. I'd like to start by saying thank you very much for being here this morning at Breast Cancer Now's first ever South Asian panel event. You could have been anywhere this morning, but you chose to be here. I'm really excited as part of Ethnic Minority Cancer Awareness Month to bring you our esteemed panel that Madiha Sajid will introduce very shortly. Just a couple of housekeeping rules just before we start, and that's very much around if you've got a mobile phone, you can switch it either to the off mode for silent. That would be really great. We're not expecting a fire alarm this morning, but if there is one, we will go out past reception and congregate outside the building. And Ashley has given everybody an evaluation form, and it would be fabulous if before you left this morning that you could actually complete that for us, because your feedback is very valuable to us. South Asians experience cancer just like other communities do, but within the South Asian community, we particularly present a lot later than other communities. Our breast awareness levels are a lot lower compared to the white population. It's really important that we start to break down the taboos, myths, and misconceptions that exist around breast cancer. There is actually no word for breast along the South Asian languages. And so today, we're going to have some very intimate and very honest conversations through our panel today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our facilitator for this event, Madiha.
I'll just stand. Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, Sat Sri Akal, and Namaskar. I am Madiha, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this session today about breast cancer awareness. Quick check of language. Are you okay with English? Would you like a bit of Urdu and Punjabi thrown in? I'm very mindful that there are colleagues in the room who might not be speaking Urdu and Punjabi, so we'll try to make it as inclusive as possible as well. Theek hai? Right? Fantastic. So, a bit about me. My role today is to facilitate the conversation. We have an amazing panel of South Asian women, all with lived experience of breast cancer. And before I pass on the mic to them, just a few things about me. Who am I and where am I coming from? So I'm Madiha. I moved to England about 20 years ago. I work at Imperial College London. It has been a really long journey of triumphs, challenges, successes, everything as well. But what has really resonated the most with me throughout my time here in the UK is the strength of communities and the power of communities coming together to share experiences, to share stories, to support each other, and to uplift each other, not only as a community, but perhaps most importantly as women. So without further ado, I welcome you again to this event. It is going to be a very informal conversation. I hope that by the time we finish, there will be something for you to take away, which you might want to share with your own family, maybe with your friends, maybe with your colleagues. And I hope you are sitting comfortably. We will welcome people in as they'll come in along, and we will see where the conversation goes. Just to say, if any time throughout the conversation you feel like you need to take a break or a pause, please feel free to step out. If you'd like to stay here, please feel free to do that. The spirit of today is to come together and to support each other as women and as a community. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm now delighted to welcome my panel. First of all, I have Dr. Jay on my right-hand side. Please, Jay, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jay Tatler. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in April 2018. I'm the mother of 2 daughters, and I am really happy to be here to tell you about my journey.
Thank you, Jay. Dr. Sarah, please.
Hi everyone, it's lovely. Thank you to Breast Cancer Now for inviting me to be with these wonderful ladies. I'm Dr. Sarah Ali. I saddle 2 things. I am a diabetes consultant, so I have medical experience and knowledge. But I'm also a trustee for the South Asian Health Foundation, so I do a lot of work in trying to help with the health outcomes for South Asian communities. But I'm also a stage 3 breast cancer survivor, and I had it at the age of 36.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And last but not the least, Samina.
Thank you. Thank you, Breast Cancer Now, and this amazing panel. And I'm Samina Hussain, and I'm a cancer survivor. I had stage 3 breast cancer at the age of 45, a shock to my world. I work full-time in health as a commissioner for children and young people's services, mental health, physical health, so I do that. But I'm also the founder of Sukoon Through Cancer, and Sukoon means peace and tranquility. Leaflets at the back there. And it's about supporting South Asian women to normalise the conversation around breast cancer, giving people safe spaces to know that, like today, we can come together, we can share our voices, and we can work through what is it that we need as a community. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Samina. So what I will do now, the way this will work is, I will ask a question to one of my panel members. They will take some time to respond. Then we will move on from the conversation. And at the end of the panel conversation, we do have time for questions, answers, reflections even as well. So I really hope that this format will allow a safe discussion as well. And just to say why we are here again today, I will be referring to my notes. I like my notes, and I have a red pen in my hand. So the first thing is really to create safe spaces to share experiences and stories. The second reason is to address the taboos and the myths that surround breast cancer. And there's also that element of cultural barriers that sometimes South Asian households face as compared to white counterparts. The third thing is to highlight the health inequalities that sometimes as an ethnic group we face. And I'm sure Dr. Sarah, she mentioned health outcomes. I will ask her to build on that in a minute as well. And finally, we will finish off by talking about the importance of being breast and body aware, because that is the critical thing for us to be aware of as women and as women of color as well.
Could I add one?
Please, Sarah.
So I know I was invited, so had to be here. But I think it's also about empowering ourselves and empowering our community. And the South Asian community is such a strong community. When someone dies in the community, people flood in with food and support and don't leave the house until for weeks, there are visits. And so we can stick with each other when it comes to something like breast cancer and not hide away from the taboo.
Amazing, Sarah, absolutely. And I think I almost feel I should ask Jay and Samina the same question. What made you say yes to this and be here today?
I mean, I think Sarah summed it up. It's about information. If you have information, you have knowledge, then you know what to do. But you don't know what you don't know. So it's just a matter of, if I tell one person, that person tells another person, they tell another person. It's very much the domino effect. And for me, as you know, I'm Sikh by religion. This is my seva. This is my service to the community, to Southeast Asian women, and just actually, quite frankly, women in general, to make you aware. If you know, cancer is not a death sentence for you. You will, I want everyone to know that, and I want them to go through their cancer journey knowing that it's not a death sentence. We're all going to face it at some point in our lives. That it's 1 in 2. But you can't run, you can't hide. So our culture has to change. Our society's approach to cancer has to change. And that's why I'm here, because I must change.
Amazing. Thank you, Jay. Samina, what has made you come here today, give up your Saturday morning?
And for me, it's normalising conversation. It's visibility. South Asian women need to be heard and seen. Our symptoms, our experiences, our lived experience is so different. And I always say that if I can reach out and change the way one woman looks at cancer, breast cancer, or goes through her journey with a much more open mindset, then I feel there was a reason why I got cancer in my life, so that I can give back. We offer befriending support, but you can walk alongside someone. We're not medics. The medics are there to do that work. But I think it is about creating a sisterhood, creating, that safety and safe spaces for people to feel it's okay to talk about. It's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to talk about cancer. So yeah, know you're normal.
Know you're normal. Amazing. Thank you so much. Staying with Samina, just asking the first question, Samina, and I'm reading from my notes here now. You were diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at the age of 45, right?
Yeah.
And then also the fact that you did not know there was a history of cancer in your family because it was a taboo topic. No one spoke about it. Therefore, you never thought of checking yourself. So can you just say a bit about what challenges you faced after that news? How did you navigate your way? Where did you go for support? What happened after that?
Yeah. And very true. There was no. So again, I checked with all of my family in Pakistan, spoke to family here, and they were like, "There's no history of cancer or breast cancer. You're the first." I actually didn't believe it, but my husband sort of said as well. He said, "You've got to remember that when people died, even at the funerals, they never said it was cancer. They never spoke about cancer. So there's no history." And all of my family said, no, you don't have cancer, which actually then means I'm not eligible for the BRCA gene testing or any other thing else to do with genetics, because my family history as known is 0. When I found out, I fell to the ground. I was 45. I was about to start a new role in local authority and local government, really quite senior. And then, my husband found the lump. It wasn't even me. I wasn't breast aware. And he was like, "There's something not quite right here." And I was like, okay. And the fact that suddenly my world changed. But nobody, I went to an all-girls school, nobody ever, I have diabetes, had said to me at any of my medical checks, "Mrs. Hussain, are you checking your breasts? And do you know how to?" I was like, nobody ever asked me that question. They asked me everything else, but they never ever. So when I sat in the chair with the consultant and they said, "Mrs. Hussain, you have breast cancer and we're going to do an MDT and we'll come back to you," it just felt, I remember saying the words to my husband, that Meri Kismet Kharab, I'm doomed. My fate is doomed. I can't believe I've got breast cancer. But actually, what I say to people now, cancer was good for me, because what it did, it allowed me to pause, stop, embrace life, but also wrap myself in self-love. I was always a caregiver. I forgot to say I'm a grandmother of 10, I know, and a mother of 3. So I never stopped giving. And I think what cancer showed me was I can give in a different way, but I need to preserve me. And that's been the most beautiful outcome for me, that I value me.
Samina, thank you so much. And I think this is so true. That resonates with me, that as women and as carers, we are used to giving, and non-stop giving. Hardly we take a pause to reflect and think about ourselves. Even if it's a physical body need, it's an emotional or a mental body need, we are always mostly on the giving side. And that is what I have seen my mother do. That is what I have seen my grandmother do. That is what I hope I'm trying to get that balance right and teach my daughter, that there is a balance between caring for your own self and caring for others. You can't pour from an empty jug. So you can only care for others if you have enough strength in yourself. So Samina, like you mentioned, that perspective has changed, and that's beautiful. We move the conversation on. Dr. Sarah, we are coming to you next. I have 2 questions for you, but I'll ask the first one first. So you were diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at a very young age of 36 years old, right? You're also a doctor. You have probably a really, really busy, hectic schedule as well. With regards to the challenges from the healthcare professionals, what did you face? Did you wish it was different? What support you received and what did you not receive? And now I'm talking about more the healthcare professionals and the cultural barriers you might have faced.
So sorry, I know that I do this sort of conversations every day with patients, but I didn't actually realize how vulnerable I might feel. I wasn't anticipating it, so I'm sorry if I get choked up. So yes, I was 36 when I was diagnosed, and having actually listened to Samina and to Jay's stories, actually there's a lot of resonance, and it's interesting to hear that they've got similar experiences as I have. I have had slightly differences because of being a healthcare professional. But one of the things, so some of the things are that when I was diagnosed, I was 36, and the only reason I picked it up was because I was breastfeeding. and I felt lumps that I thought were breastfeeding changes. And so I said to my husband, "Oh, they're probably nothing, and I'll wait a few weeks after I've stopped breastfeeding and see if they go away." And they didn't, so that's when I went to see the GP. But it's funny because I'm a doctor, and I wasn't breast aware then, so I never felt my breasts until that moment. So that was that's one thing that's quite similar actually to what Samina's mentioned. But then when I was in the clinic room, the day, it was a week after I had had my first investigations, which was the mammogram, the biopsy, and I was waiting for the biopsy result. My surgeon, who is fantastic, and I remember his words very clearly, and I've got a very good visual memory, so it all plays out in my mind, and that's probably where I get all the emotions coming back, because I can see it in front of my eyes right now. He said, "Sarah, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have breast cancer." And what was very interesting was that split second, I was whizzed back to when I was a medical student, and I was in the lecture theatre, and the lecturer in front of me said, "The most common person to get breast cancer is a white woman in her 50s, and often with a family history." And I sat there and then I came back to my consultant thinking, but hang on, I'm none of those things. I'm 36, I am brown, and I don't have a family history, because I didn't know at the time, but actually my aunt had had a breast removed a few 10, 20, 40 years, whatever ago in Pakistan. So what I want to just emphasize at that point is that there is a problem with cultural competence with healthcare professionals. So it's not just the communities, it's actually, there's a big onus should be put on healthcare communities and professionals understanding the cultural differences. And actually that just very quickly leads me to the point that Samina was talking about with genetic testing. So when I was offered, because of my age, and well, actually, no, I wasn't offered because of my age, because in those days, NICE didn't give you the genetic testing according to age. It was based on family history. And but I said that my maternal aunt, had had breast cancer, so my consultant referred me to the genetic counsellor. And the genetic counsellor went through my history, but I was told that my family history was not strong enough. And so I was denied genetic testing. After that, I got very much involved with the South Asian Health Foundation, and I learned a lot about cultural competence, which is that healthcare professionals often have awareness that different cultures exist, but they don't realize how they need to use that to adapt to the person that's in front of them, to individualize medical care and treatment. And what was lacking in my genetic consultation, which meant that she was not taking a good cultural history, was that for my family history to be strong, it would mean that I should have relatives 40 to 80 years ago diagnosed with cancer in India and Pakistan. That wouldn't happen in this country 40 and 80 years ago. Why would it happen? Why do we expect it to have happened in India and Pakistan? That as we've heard, South Asian communities do not talk about ill health. It's a taboo, so no one's going to talk about their breasts and they've got breast cancer. So I didn't know that my aunt had had breast cancer until I said to my mum, "Does anyone in our family have it?" And South Asians are more likely to die of infection and heart attacks than to die of cancer, so the conversation is not going to come up. But also, if you're Muslim, like I am, if you die young or suddenly, you won't have a post-mortem, so we won't pick up cancer. So actually, all of those things were lacking in my genetic history taking. So it really, really needs to go back, not just to the communities, but to healthcare professionals, to people working in research, to engage our communities better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I think what Sarah has mentioned about the cultural competence and the cultural understanding, that is so important. And an example is coming to my mind. I shared that with Sally yesterday. I came to England 20 years ago. One day my daughter fell really ill. We had to take her to the hospital. And this is me who could speak perfect English. One of the first things the receptionist said to me was, "Do you want to grab a seat?" And I'm like, should I grab a seat, take a seat? What am I supposed to do with the seat? Am I supposed to take it away somewhere? What am I supposed to do with that? The language barrier is real. And the lack of cultural understanding that in many cultures, in our culture, we don't bare our bodies to people who are not we don't even bear that to our families, right? It is not normal. There's that element of modesty, that element of privacy that we hold really close to our heart. I would feel very uncomfortable if I were to ask, "Can you show me your breasts, please?" even to a healthcare professional. And how do we navigate that? How do we reach that point where I, as an end user, I'm comfortable to let someone check my breasts? That we need to be there. And I think there's a role for healthcare professionals to play. I think you're right, Sarah. The onus is not all on the community. The onus is on the healthcare professionals as well, please.
So, sorry, I should have mentioned also that since then I have actually got the BRCA2 gene mutation. And I found out 8 years later. So that's why, and I only had the testing because as a healthcare professional, I could navigate the system. So yes, absolutely, the healthcare system needs to change. And that's partly where breast cancer now has a huge role, as does the South Asian Health Foundation, whom I'm a trustee with. And that brings me to my painting. I don't know if you've seen, but that was really made, it's called Brown Women Get Breast Cancer Too. And one of the paintings features in a health inequality report that we wrote for the South Asian Health Foundation.
Actually, that was going to be question number 2 to Sarah.
Sorry.
But you mentioned.
Sorry.
So, guys, Sarah is an artist as well, in addition to being a doctor. And at the back of the room, when we go over that side, there is a beautiful painting that Sarah, maybe do you want to say a few words about what made you draw that, and maybe now feels like the right moment to talk about that?
I had to restart my journey. So I'm 11 years out, thank God. I'm cancer-free. But I had to restart my journey 3 years ago when I was diagnosed with the BRCA2 gene mutation. And so I was on sick leave having preventative surgery to reduce my 80% chance of new breast cancer. And I only came to art just before I developed breast cancer. Actually, it was like godsend because it's given me a lot of relief. And I've been very good at putting my emotions aside and caring for others. I think we've heard that today. So someone said, "Why don't you paint your journey?" So that's what I did. And there's a lot of raw, I can't even look at it actually right now, a lot of raw emotion in there, because I wanted people to look at it and realize that we shouldn't be ignored, that we do get breast cancer. We get breast cancer earlier. It's more aggressive. So we shouldn't be forgotten. We get it before the screening system will pick us up. And there shouldn't be sharam or shame in it. And we need to have conversations to break down the taboos.
Thank you so much. So powerful, Sarah. And actually, if you do get it... Did I break something? Okay. So if you get a chance, do go over to that site and have a look at that. And I'm sure Sarah will be happy to talk you through as well. But what a beautiful way, though. And what a very raw way of expressing your journey, Sarah. So I'm humbled to hear that. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. J, I have a question for you now. You are a researcher, right? You do a lot of research. You do stuff, and ethnic minorities is particularly where you focus as well. So my question to you is that ethnic minorities are underrepresented in clinical trials. So firstly, for the benefit of all of us, could you please tell us what are clinical trials? What is the value of ethnic minorities getting involved in them? And how might you advise what might be the best step, the first step, for example, if I want to get involved in a clinical trial? What should I do? Where should I start?
So let me tell you first, I work in clinical trials research. So for different pharma companies that want to run and test and validate new drugs, be it for cancer, be it for Parkinson's, all diseases in this country. I get them their permissions and I find them their patients so they can run a trial in this country. So clinical trials are so important. But the majority of clinical trials, so we have to have a clinical trial to test, to make sure it's safe and it's actually doing what it says on the box. You can only take part in a clinical trial if you know that there are clinical trials that exist. Clinical trials go from phase 1 to phase 5, it doesn't matter, but the different steps that are involved. But the take-home message is currently, not just in the UK, but globally, there is not enough ethnic diversity in clinical trials. So how Rachel, I was talking to Rachel about this earlier, so how Rachel would react to something and how Navjeet would react to something. Simple drug like paracetamol. It could be less toxic in Rachel's body and more toxic in Navjeet's body. But if we just have 100 Rachels and no Navjeets, we're not going to pick this, we're not going to know. So, and again, it comes back to my point, is you only know what you know. If you don't know that there are clinical trials, I'll take it back to breast cancer now. With breast cancer, there are so many clinical trials. The majority of the treatment regimens that are used currently, again, the nurses can correct me, you know more on this. These are old protocols. These are old medicines, that haven't really moved on, because the drugs that I had, they were using these in the 60s. But the way medicine is moving now, it's moving so quickly. So cancer can be treated. The stories that you have out there are amazing. People on death's door, they're living normal lives. We have immunotherapy, we have CAR-T therapy, but for some of them, we just have to take a pill. But you have to be asked to take part. Your consultant has to have enough cultural awareness to ask you in a way to take part. But our community needs awareness, because it goes back to everybody's points that they've raised so far. The normalization of the discussion of disease, to the normalization, yes, I've got breast cancer. It's my father, he's in his 70s. The word breast just rolls off his tongue now. 6, 7 years ago, it would be just like, pull your top up, it's too low. That was the closest reference that you would get. But it's a normal conversation in my household. The more you normalize it, the better it is for you. And for clinical trials, there are, again, I will refer to my father. He's a hypochondriac. This hurts, my foot hurts, my ankle hurts. And I will say to him, Dad, get involved in a clinical trial, because you are so closely monitored. It's like they can pick up things that they weren't looking for. But I said, you'll be going in every 2 or 4 weeks. So it helps that part of the community. But we need to tell the unDGs. We all have that unDG in our community who says, I don't know, she can say, this drug is good for you. She's not qualified to say this drug is good for you, but all the family is going to listen to this unDG, right? We need to find who that unDG is in our own communities and say, look at clinical trials. Breast Cancer Now has a wonderful page on their website that will direct you towards trials that you can go to. They'll direct you towards that. All the information is out there, but you need to know that you are just as valuable. We need your data probably more than we need Rachel's data. Sorry, Rachel, you're in my line of sight. I see that. But your data, it will make the difference between a drug going to market or not going to market, because all of the authorities, Zara, you can back me up now, they all know that we need more ethnic diversity in clinical trials. We need more accurate data. We can't just work on the drugs that worked well for Rachel or Peter. I can't stress this. I feel like I'm on my little hobby horse and my soapbox. it's our duty, forget everything else. It's our duty to help each other, to help the community. I don't care if you're Sikh, Muslim, Hindu. As a community, we need to ask our doctors. And we also have to remember, sorry again, Sarah, doctors don't know everything, right?
I agree.
There's truth to that.
You ask them the question. You be pushy. If you're not comfortable with what they've said to you, it's like, I need to speak to somebody else. They need to take in the cultural awareness. I mean, we think of clinical trials, chemotherapy, we'll stick to the cancer line. The first thing is, I'm going to lose my hair. And for Amritdhari Sikh people, hair is very important. But now you don't necessarily lose your hair. There is a way for you to not lose your hair. And then maybe Mr. Singh would say, okay, I will take part in this trial because I will still have mine. It's the sign of a Sikh, is his hair and his beard. But there are ways around it. But if you don't know, you can't take part. We have to tell. And for me, that's the take-home message. Domino effect, talk about it, normalize it, and clinical trials may not help you, me, but it will help our daughters in the future and other people of ethnic communities in the future. Because it's not all about the now. It's what, even if it doesn't work for you in a clinical trial, they will know, okay, this didn't work. Even a negative result in a clinical trial is a positive outcome.
So important, Jay, and I think what you just mentioned, it resonates with me. I have a daughter. She is 19 and a half years old. And like you mentioned, if getting involved in research might not benefit me directly, it is going to benefit my daughter and her children probably further down the line. And you're right. I like to think about it as no decisions about us without us. So if we do get involved, please take your time. If we do decide to get involved in medical research and clinical trials, actually, we are doing a favor to our next generation. Staying with you, Jay, I have another question for you. I wanted to ask you that you were diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in 2018 as a mother to 2 young children. And I wanted to touch upon that, the role of family. And actually, Jay's family is in the room today as well. So I wanted to ask you, Jay, who would you describe as your biggest supporter and how your family came together to help you through this journey? So take your time, please. We are in no rush at all.
I was 47 when I was diagnosed. I left home at 18. The eldest of 6 children, so I've always been very self-sufficient. Just get on with it. Have issues in life, you fall down, you can just pick yourself up and off you go. So at the age of 48, I needed my mother again. My mother used to help me put my pants on, help me have a bath. And my parents never used to call me because it's like, if she's got any problems, she'll call us. She'll come in touch. I was just that child. I just got on with it. No. For the first time in my life, I needed my parents. I needed my children. My children were 9 and 10. It was just awful. We've been taking them, making my 9-year-old, who's now 16, she's my drug dealer. She used to get all my pills and medicines in her own. The box that Nana had with like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had that from a really young age. My siblings' support was good, but it was, to be honest, it was probably the first time in my life that it was about me. I had to have cancer for them to come, for me to be a child, and for my parents to look after me. It's not easy when you spend your whole life I'm a soldier. I go to war every day. That's my usual approach to life. I couldn't get up at some days. But my family, but I also had my sisters from other misters. they took me to chemotherapy. I didn't want my husband to see me being a complete sometimes when I was out there. They'd load me up with steroids. Some days I thought I could fly, and other days I wanted to kill everybody. So I didn't want them to experience that and have that trauma. There was enough trauma for them to see without them seeing me going through that. Family, my sisters from other misters played a bigger role because family live over in Essex and I'm over in Surrey. They did everything, took my kids to school, I didn't know the kids existed because I had to focus on me. My husband, you talk about Asian men not being in touch with their emotions. I will never forget when he walked me down for my mastectomy. Then we knew it was bad. We knew this was going to be a 15-month journey. All he said to me was just like, I love you. You can do this. You can do anything. And it was that, my dad said to me, God gives his hardest battles to his bravest soldiers. And it was battled, one day at a time. Family are important. Your friends are important. I feel guilt that my children were my support network on some days, aged 9 and 10. I don't think I'll ever get over it, and I think Sarah would agree with me on that. I don't think I'll ever get over the trauma of what I put them through. I mean, they'll say to me, but why you, Mummy? Why did it happen to us? Our life has been turned upside down, inside out, and somebody's just spat and tramped on our very simple existence that we used to have. But we're stronger. I'm here. You value the relationships that you form, the people that you meet on your journey. And some of these women, some of them are sadly passed away, but the impact that they had on me and on how to face it. We'll talk about the community family. So the Asian community, it was kind of like a bipolar response. Some were there that supported. Others were there, as I was saying to you earlier, they wanted to come see me. We have, it's called a source. When somebody dies, you go to their house to pay respects. They wanted to come see me and pay respect before I died. And I haven't seen them for the past 20 years, but they want to come see me when I am at my lowest point. So there was a line, and it was to my parents, because I couldn't hide. I had chemotherapy. I had no hair. There was no denying the fact that I was going through cancer treatment. No, I don't want to see him. No, he can go away, not interested, because he hasn't called me for the past however many, but now all of a sudden, I felt like a freak show. And that's the other thing, cancer's your disease, it's my disease, I own it, and you have to just, it's your journey. And you can't have anybody disrespect your journey, and you own your journey, and you have to, for me, again, family, community. This is the primary reason I'm here. The more we talk about it, the more you know. Cancer, you're not going to die of cancer. It's going to be a tough couple of years, but you're still going to be here. So you change your mindset. And the mindset is very important because, again, I've seen Southeast Asian women receive a cancer diagnosis in our family, and they just curl up in that corner. It's like, that letter, God take me. This is it, I'm done for. Nothing yet. Medicine can't save me. And medicine can save you. Your community can save you. But again, we go back to that circle, back to that NDG, back to getting that information out in our humongous families that we have by marriage, by blood, or just because you lived next door to them for like 20 years, you go and you just tell them. And I just kept telling them. And I still feel that
powerful. And this literally shows me the power of sharing. I bet you probably there's not a dry eye in the room right now. And this is literally so raw, so honest, and so vulnerable. This speaks to me. Thank you, Jay, from the bottom of my heart for sharing that with us so valuably. speaking about what you just mentioned, the RTGs and the role of that, Samina has actually formed a charity organization called Sukoon Through Cancer. Sukoon means peacefulness. Peacefulness? Peace. Peace through cancer. And Samina, my question to you is, I'll read it off from here. Hang on, let me find the question. Yes. Well, the question is obvious. What led you to start the charity Sukoon Through Cancer? And you also did knit your socks off. Could you just tell us a bit more about that?
I will, yeah. And I think everything Jay's sort of shared, my experience was that I was the only one in chemo. I didn't see anyone like me. I didn't meet anyone like me. I was very isolated. It was all of a shock. And then I kept asking the breast care nurses in chemo, do Asian women not come to chemo? And they said, no, they do, but they present very late. So I think for me, it took a couple of years after my diagnosis before I set the charity up, because I really knew I needed to heal myself and make peace with my story, because I'd been traumatized. I'd had the chemo, I'd lost my hair, I'd put on 20 kg of weight, I was humongous, and I'd not been to work for about 18 months. I had a blood clot, so I spent a lot of time in hospital. So there were other complexities that also aligned. And then assumptions from the community of people telling me, are you going to die? And I'm like, well, I had no plan to, but let's see what happens. And I think the biggest thing, my coping was sharing on Facebook pictures and just statements, especially at night when I couldn't sleep. And I think what really got me was when, other women connected and said, thank you for sharing your story. My mother died from breast cancer, but we were never allowed to talk about it. And I think that was harder than actually my own breast cancer diagnosis at 45. Because I was like, really? Are we still in an era where there's no visibility? People don't have a safe space that they can share their story. I think that's what led me to Sukoon, because I believe that you need to have peace and tranquility in everything you do. Adversity teaches you. Rarely with hardship comes ease, a Quranic verse that taught me that actually there is goodness in everything and everything happens for a reason. So Sukoon was very much about giving women the opportunity to connect. I am the go-to person in Slough and Berkshire if anyone, has a breast cancer or wants to talk about cancer. It's just normalizing conversation. It was COVID as well, so we couldn't do the sort of live meetups, but we took it all online. We did Insta Lives, we did Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we've progressed now considerably. I mean, funding is always going to be an issue for grassroots organizations. We work on a shoestring and people's passion and volunteers, and that's what matters, because they're the true people that want to be in the room. And we've been working, we've done befriending, we offer befriending, we do schools workshops, and I'm passionate about the schools workshops because I think if we can educate young people, boys and girls, to be breast aware, to understand the symptoms, because I'm 100% sure all of the look symptoms were there for me, but I didn't know that that's what they were. Forget the feel. So I think the schools workshops is really powerful. We've just started Roti Club, and that's about giving women a culturally appropriate supper club and giving women safe spaces and having small talks, but giving people the opportunity to just connect, just like today. Just connect, hear stories, resonate, take what we need from it, but heal. I'm a great advocate and passionate about storytelling. So heal from our journey. We did a conference last month on Your Story, Your Gift. And it is your story. And don't let anyone change that, because that is the intersectionality of who I am as a Muslim woman, as a woman, a breast cancer survivor at age 45, mother, grandmother, that's who I am. And I stand proud of who I am, what I need, what I stand for, but also how I can elevate and empower other Asian women to say that I'm going to take care. See, your body is a gift. And we are given to look after our bodies. So it's like drinking water and going to the gym. and doing all of that, we should also be doing, you know, the hands, the feet, the breast examinations. And these were the things I just didn't know. But how do you get to age 45 working in the public sector at quite a senior professional level? And I didn't know any of this. And that was the heartbreak for me, is when if I didn't know, how would my mother, whose English is not her first language, how would she have navigated? And just like Dr. Sarah said about, you know, the BRCA gene, yes, she's a health professional, she's clinical. She was able to navigate 8 years later to get that. Sure. I still haven't managed that, you know, because I'm still like, well, family history says no, but I know that's not true. So I think, you know, it takes time to build grassroots charities. It takes time to connect with women. And everyone will show up at the right time when they need it. Yeah. So there's no, you know, compulsion, or it's just putting the vibe out there that there's support there for you if you need it. And some women come to me and say, but my journey was 3 years ago. I said, but it was your journey. And that's what matters. Yeah. So there's never a right time when people are going to reach in. So that's why when, you know, I think all services should be unlimited, that you can access counselling, support, engagement at any point. I only, after 8 years, had some counselling last year due to a work situation, but also the trauma of sharing my story and knowing that actually this really did happen to me. Yeah. The hardest bit for me was when I lost my eyelashes, not my hair. My hair was fine. I was rocking it bald. I tried the job because, again, the community were like, oh, it's your calling to cover your head now as a good girl. But that wasn't me. That wasn't me. My passion, my love for my faith is utmost, but I will do it when it's right for me. But also when I lost my eyelashes, I realized how much they protected my eyes. Your eyes were streaming and sore. So qadr, you know, having that understanding that actually these things have a purpose, and I didn't know that. So I learned a lot on the journey. I learned how to let go of toxic relationships and being the giver, and not being selfish, but doing it in a beautiful way to say, I need to put a protective ring around me, and I need to do what's right for me now. And that's not being selfish, that's being kind to me.
Being kind to you, exactly. And I think I'm reminded of a quote here which says, self-care is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of survival. So I think as women, we must remind ourselves of that. So going through cancer, there are leaflets at the back of the room, right? So when we are finished with the conversation, it would be really nice if you could go back and pick up one of those, have a chat with Samina as well. So thank you for that, Samina. Dr. Sarah, I know you wanted to add something on to that, but I also wanted to quickly ask you.
Oh, yes.
Yes, please. Just building on to that, we all know you are a healthcare professional, but you're also a person as a whole, right? The other side of you. So perhaps very quickly some reflections on that and what you wanted to add to Samina's comment, please.
Thank you. Actually, I could merge them together. So I was just listening to the stories, and I think that anyone who's been through breast cancer in the South Asian community probably, but also other communities, has probably heard similar stories or had similar stories. I was very young when I had breast cancer. I was 36, so actually all of us were, but I had a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. And my mother had been through ill health, but she'd had appendicitis and ended up in ITU with sepsis. And this was before I got diagnosed. And one of the things that she encountered was the South Asian community, as great as they can be, had lots to say. They visited her in ITU. Why would friends visit you in ITU when you're on your deathbed? Because it was reminding them of their own mortality rather than actually visiting her for a good reason. And they didn't come and see her when she was better at home. So one of the things she asked me when I was diagnosed, not because she had any shame or she thought I was defective, which are some of the words you might hear when you get ill health in the South Asian community, was that she didn't want me to go through hearing those comments when I was looking after a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old and having to have chemotherapy. So actually, to this day, the vast majority of my mother's friends and the girls and boys that I've grown up with do not know that I've had breast cancer, so some people might be hearing this for the first time if it's recorded. And none of my 60 first cousins knew that I had breast cancer. And that was to save me from hearing the Auntie G's pitying me when actually I needed to fight for to survive. But part of me as a healthcare professional struggled with that because I wanted to shout from the top of the building and tell people that South Asians get breast cancer too, and that, like Samina, I prayed and wished for the next person that walked into the chemo suite and the waiting room that they would look like me, because no one looked like me. And so I had to battle not telling anyone, with wanting to tell people, and that was really hard. And I can't remember what the question was.
No, that's absolutely fine. This is what it is. It's a very natural and very organic conversation. So friends, colleagues, you have heard from 3 amazing women, 3 powerful stories. We have spoken about the diagnosis stage. We have heard about the support from family. We have heard about cultural barriers. We have heard about the stigma and the shame that comes with it. But then what comes out of this is the sukoon and the journey and the hardships that we endure in order to be able to get to a place like this.